Director Darren Aronofsky's 2008 film The Wrestler earned tons of acclaim, including the Golden Lion Award at that year's Venice International Film Festival. Lead actor Mickey Rourke won a BAFTA award, a Golden Globe, an Independent Spirit Award, and even got a Best Actor Oscar nomination for his performance. In an appearance on The Howard Stern Show, Hulk Hogan claimed he was offered Rourke's role 3 times. Reiterating those claims to Digital Spy, Hogan said, "When the script for The Wrestler kept coming to me, I said, this movie is so good. If you put me in the film as a wrestler, people are going to say, no credibility, Hulk Hogan isn't a good actor, whatever Hollywood thinks of me." If Hogan is to be believed, he passed up the role to ensure the success of the movie. But it doesn't appear to be true. Aronofsky shot down Hogan's claims on X, formerly known as Twitter, posting, "For the record, the role of the wrestler was always Mickey Rourke. It was never Hulk Hogan's, as he claims." In an interview with The Sun, Hogan said, "I used to be a session musician before I was a wrestler. I played bass guitar. I was big pals with Lars Ulrich, and he asked me if I wanted to play bass with Metallica in the early days, but it didn't work out." Huge if true, as they say, but it isn't. Ulrich, drummer for and co-founder of Metallica, says that he doesn't even know who Hulk Hogan is. He said on The Howard Stern Show, "I don't know Hulk Hogan. I don't know enough about him. I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I certainly have no recollection of doing anything with, quote, Hulk Hogan, end quote. That one, I was scratching my head on that one too." Hogan later walked the Metallica claims back a bit. In multiple recent interviews, he said he merely sent in a video audition of his bass playing, but never heard back from the band.
Holy smokes, Metallica, I could be in Metallica. Did an audition tape, put a tape together, sent it to the band, never heard a word from him.
In a 2015 interview with Radio Yorkshire, Hulk Hogan made the bizarre claim that he was the first person to see Kevin Owens as the guy. He said, "I saw him on NXT like his second match and saw him just chop and beat and grind and beating his guy down and doing it the old school way and really understanding how to get heat. Doing it the old school way, and I said, that's the guy. I don't care if he looks like a wrestler or looks like an ice cream salesman. I don't care. That's the guy." While it's nice that Hogan saw potential in Owens, who has gone on to become a huge name in WWE, his statement is ludicrous. Kevin Owens began wrestling in 2000, years before his run in NXT. As Kevin Steen, he had a very successful independent wrestling career and had built a sizable cult following among fans. Many people, including William Regal and Triple H in NXT, had seen the potential in Owens well before 2015. Pride fighters before Pride existed. In 2011, Hulk Hogan appeared on Boomer and Carton Radio Show to promote his match with Sting at the Impact Bound for Glory pay-per-view. When the hosts asked Hogan if he had any interest in MMA, Hogan said he did some while wrestling in Japan. Hogan said he fought a lot of Pride fighters during his time in Japan in 1977, and whenever he had a wrestling match in Japan, he never knew if he was getting into the ring with a shooter. There are a number of issues with this claim. The Japanese MMA promotion Pride was first established in 1997, 20 years after Hogan claimed he fought Pride fighters. Second, Hulk Hogan's first tour of Japan happened in 1980. He wasn't even in Japan in 1977. It is possible Hogan trained with mixed martial artists in Japan and was erroneously calling them Pride fighters, but his claim is still highly exaggerated. In 1982, Hulk Hogan appeared in Rocky III as Thunderlips.
Thunderlips is here, in the flesh, baby.
Using the movie as inspiration, Hulk Hogan started coming out for his matches, including at the first WrestleMania, to the movie's theme song, Eye of the Tiger. In his autobiography, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Hogan claimed that he was the first person to ever use entrance music in wrestling. But there is historical evidence to the contrary. There are many instances of entrance music being used in wrestling before Hogan. Gorgeous George is often credited as the first person to use entrance music as early as the 1940s and 50s. Sir Edward Elgar's Pomp and Circumstance would play as George would gracefully enter the ring. World Class Championship Wrestling was also using entrance music in the 70s and was the first company to give every wrestler unique tracks, so Hogan was far from the first wrestler to use entrance music. In both of his autobiographies, Hogan wrote about a match he had with The Undertaker at Survivor Series 1991. The match ended with The Undertaker hitting Hogan with a tombstone piledriver on a steel chair. In his second autobiography, My Life Outside the Ring, Hogan and co-writer Mark D'Agostino wrote, "When he dropped that tombstone on me, my skull made contact with the chair. The jolt of the whole move threw my neck out. My neck, calves, shoulders, biceps, triceps, forearms, everything went numb." Just 24 years old at the time, The Undertaker panicked as he ran to the back, thinking he had injured the biggest wrestling star of all time. Hogan has complained that the piledriver did indeed mess up his neck, and that the tombstone gave him permanent neck issues. Looking back at footage of the match, however, Hogan's head doesn't come close to touching the chair. It looks like The Undertaker performed the move as safely as possible. Hogan has changed his story a few times over the years, saying maybe it was Undertaker's knee that jammed his neck. The footage still says otherwise.
When I tell you I had the brother secure, he was secure.
In his book, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Hogan wrote that even though he was what he described as a fat kid in his youth, he managed some legendary feats of athleticism. For one, he claims to have batted an unheard of .714 in the Little League World Series. Hogan says that while he wasn't the most athletic baseball player ever, he had plenty of power and established himself as a home run hitter. He says his performances for West Tampa Little League put him on the map, and talent scouts from the New York Yankees and Cincinnati Reds came to see him play. Hogan's apparently impressive baseball career got cut short because of injury. He told Mercury News, "As I threw underhanded to first base, I broke my arm. My arm was never the same." Conveniently, the Little League website has no record of Hogan's unheard-of accomplishment, nor does it have any record of a young Terry Bollea, Hogan's real name, ever even playing in the Little League World Series. Hulk Hogan has told the story many times that he passed on the opportunity to endorse the product that would become the George Foreman Grill. On an episode of his reality show, Hogan Knows Best, the Hulkster said he missed the phone call as he was picking up his kids from school. The story goes that while he was away from the phone, the grill was offered to boxing legend George Foreman instead. He said, $550 million later, George got the lean, mean grilling machine. According to Foreman's longtime lawyer, Henry Holmes, the origins of the George Foreman Grill have no Hogan in sight. He explained in Southern California Super Lawyers magazine in 2005 that the designer of the grill had connections to George Foreman through an attorney named Sam Perlmutter. Perlmutter showed the grill to Foreman, who agreed to endorse the grill after his wife made him a hamburger on it. If that is indeed the true story, then Hulk Hogan was never in consideration. In his book, My Life Outside the Ring, Hulk Hogan made the outlandish claim that he once wrestled 400 days in 1 year. How could this possibly happen? Hogan argued the time difference from flying back and forth from Japan made his years longer than the typical 365 days. Hogan wrote, "There were times when I'd fly back and forth to Japan twice a week just to wrestle. Now, it was nothing to wrestle in Madison Square Garden one day, then fly all the way to the Egg Dome in Tokyo the same day, because you'd gain 14 hours, and then fly back to the West Coast, and so on. So I could wrestle in Japan today, and then fly back across the international date line, and land in another town yesterday. I was constantly adding days to my years." There's no record of Hogan wrestling at Madison Square Garden and the Tokyo Dome on the same day. Even if he did do that, he wouldn't have gained 14 hours, as he said. He would actually have lost 14 hours. Hogan's claim of wrestling 400 days a year isn't just baffling, it's mathematically impossible. In 1991, on the Arsenio Hall show, Hulk Hogan flat out denied ever using steroids.
The things that I am not is I'm not a steroid abuser, and I do not use steroids.
Hogan would go back on this claim 3 years later during the 1994 Vince McMahon steroid trial, where he claimed he had taken steroids before, but had stopped taking them in 1990. This could be somewhat believable since Hogan, while still quite muscular, was visibly skinnier than he used to be. Hogan has since opened up more about his steroid use, saying a lot of it was doctor-prescribed. In his first autobiography, Hogan goes in depth on the topic, writing, "I never had a question about whether I would take them. It was part of my daily regimen."
70s, 80s, doctors would write you a prescription, for a steroid.
In 1993, Carrie Von Eric, known in the WWF as the Texas Tornado, learned that he had been indicted on drug possession charges. Von Eric was already on a 10-year probation from another charge and was facing serious jail time. Von Eric took his own life at his father's ranch in Dallas at just 33 years of age on February 18th of that year. Strangely, Hulk Hogan claims in his book, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, that he was on a flight to Japan with Von Eric just 72 hours before Von Eric's death, despite there being no record of Von Eric going to or coming from Japan in the days before his death. His last match in Japan was 7 months earlier. Indeed, with the charges he was facing, Von Eric was unlikely to have left the U.S. There are also no records of Hogan going to Japan around that time either. He would have some matches in Japan in late 1993, but nothing in February as he claimed. It is very likely Hogan and Von Eric shared flights to Japan at some point, but specifically saying it was 72 hours before the latter's death is unquestionably false. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988 or by calling 1-800-273-TALK-8255.